When my brother totaled his car, my parents bought him a new one that same week. When mine broke down, they said, "You're an adult, figure it out." So I did. 3 months later, I pulled into their driveway in a car they could never afford. My brother pointed and said, "Think you could get me one too?" I just laughed and said, "Figure it out." My name's Tyler, I'm 26, and if there's one thing you need to know about my family, it's that they have a golden child. His name is Zach, my younger brother by 2 years, and ever since we were kids, he's been the star. He got the better room, the bigger slice of cake, the louder applause. I used to tell myself I was just imagining it. Maybe I was too sensitive. Maybe I read too much into things. But as we got older, it got harder to ignore. Especially when it came to cars. Zach crashed his first one at 17, texting while driving. My parents were upset, for all of a week, then surprised him with a newer model, complete with a ribbon on top like it was some kind of prize. Me? I saved up for years to buy my used sedan. No ribbon, no congratulations. Just a raised eyebrow from Dad and a muttered, "Don't get cocky, it's just a car." Still, I didn't say anything. I'd gotten used to fading into the background while Zach soaked up the spotlight. I studied hard, worked full-time during college, graduated without debt, and got a decent job in finance. Meanwhile, Zach drifted from one interest to another. DJing, e-commerce, crypto trading, all funded, of course, by our parents. He called it finding himself. I called it freeloading. But again, I stayed quiet. I figured if I just kept doing my own thing, maybe they'd eventually see me for who I really was. Then came the moment that kicked off everything. It was a rainy Thursday when my car gave out. I'd been driving back from work, same commute I'd done 100 times before, when the engine sputtered and died right in the middle of the highway off-ramp. Towed it to the shop. Mechanic took one look and told me it wasn't worth fixing, transmission was shot, and a few other things were on their last legs too. I still remember standing in the garage, hearing the estimate, doing the math in my head, and realizing I couldn't swing a new car right away. Not unless I emptied out every cent I had. That night, I called my parents, not to beg or anything, just to talk. To tell them what happened. Maybe see if they'd offer a small loan to help me out temporarily. I wasn't expecting much, but I wasn't expecting what I got. Dad sighed the moment I brought up car. "Tyler," he said, like I was a child who'd broken a vase, "you're an adult now. You make your own money. Figure it out." Mom chimed in with her usual soft, enabling tone. "We've done enough for you, sweetie. Maybe try budgeting better." I was stunned into silence. Budgeting better? I hadn't been on vacation in 3 years. I lived in a modest one-bedroom and brought lunch to work every day. Meanwhile, Zach was on his third sabbatical of the year, posting selfies in Miami with captions like "Grind never stops." Still, I said nothing. I just thanked them, hung up, and stared at my wall for a while. That night, I rode the bus home in silence, trying not to let the storm of resentment building in my chest swallow me whole. The next day, I pulled myself together. I rented a cheap car for the short term, started researching side hustles, and picked up some freelance work after hours. It was exhausting. I barely slept for weeks, but slowly, things began to change. One of the freelance gigs introduced me to a fintech startup. I started helping them with data analysis, then system optimization. They were impressed, more than I ever heard my own parents be. They offered me a full-time remote role with stock options and a generous signing bonus. I said yes before the words had finished leaving their mouth. From there, things moved fast. The company took off. Our platform got some serious traction, and by the end of the second quarter, my shares were worth more than every penny my parents had ever spent on Zach's ventures. I didn't flaunt it. I still lived simply. Still ate leftovers. Still wore the same old watch. But I knew. And it felt good. 3 months after the night my car died, I bought myself a new one. Not just any car. A fully loaded electric SUV with custom trim and features Zach probably didn't even know existed. I didn't post about it. Didn't make a fuss. I just drove it over to my parents' place on a quiet Sunday afternoon. I pulled into the driveway like I'd done 100 times before. Only this time, the engine didn't sputter or whine. It purred. Sleek, silent, beautiful. I stepped out, and I swear my mom gasped. Dad came to the porch with a look I couldn't read. And Zach? Zach practically sprinted out of the garage, eyes glued to the car like it was a spaceship. "Whose is that?" he asked wide-eyed. "Mine," I said, tossing the keys in my hand like it was nothing. He whistled low. "Dang, man, that's sick. You think you could hook me up with one too?" I looked at him. Really looked at him. His designer hoodie, the fresh sneakers I'd seen him buy with Dad's credit card last month. And I just laughed. "Figure it out," I said. The words hit harder than I expected. He blinked. My dad's expression soured. And Mom tried to smile like nothing was wrong, like the tension wasn't as thick as wet concrete, but I didn't stick around. I just gave them a little nod and walked into the house, acting like nothing had changed, when in reality, everything had. And that's when things really started unraveling. Because once they realized just how well I'd done for myself, the masks started to slip. It didn't take long for the questions to start. That night, I got a text from Mom. "We didn't know you got a new job." "Why didn't you tell us, sweetheart?" I ignored it. Not to be rude, but because I needed space. I'd spent so many years trying to earn their pride, their interest, their basic decency. And now that I was finally doing well, it felt like bait. Like the moment I replied, they'd rope me back into being the reliable older son. The one who always had to understand, forgive, and provide. A day later, Dad called. Straight to voicemail. By midweek, I had a message from Zach. "Bro, if you got connections at that job of yours, let me know. I'm kinda looking to pivot into tech lol." I almost laughed out loud. Zach, the same guy who mocked me for being a desk jockey? Now he wanted in. I didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, I kept working. The startup was growing fast. Our product had gone viral in a few finance circles. And now we were fielding partnership offers from companies I used to dream of working for. I'd never felt this kind of momentum before. And yet, with every win, the weight of the past tried to claw its way back. It's hard to explain. Even after proving myself, a part of me still heard my dad's voice in my head. "Don't get cocky." About 2 weeks after the car reveal, my parents invited me to dinner. Just me, not Zach. That was a red flag in itself. I debated saying no, but curiosity got the better of me. I drove over on a Saturday evening, parking the SUV just slightly crooked so it took up a bit more space than necessary. A petty move, sure, but I'd earned it. Inside, everything was too perfect. The table was set with Mom's good china, the one she only used for holidays. There were even candles. It was the kind of effort they usually reserve for Zach's birthdays. "We're so proud of you," Mom said the second I sat down. Dad cleared his throat and added, "It's impressive, Tyler. Very impressive." I nodded slowly, waiting for the catch. It came before dessert. "So," Dad started, cutting into his roast chicken, "your brother's been struggling a bit. You know how it is, economy's tough. He had to sell his gaming setup." I stayed silent. "He's thinking about starting a small project," Mom jumped in. "Something tech-related. And we thought, well, maybe you two could team up." I set my fork down. "Team up?" I asked. "Just you've got the know-how. The experience." "He's got ideas." I couldn't help it. I laughed. Not a loud, mocking laugh, just a soft, disbelieving one. "He's got ideas?" He couldn't even finish a coding boot camp without rage quitting because they made him debug his own work. Mom's smile twitched. "Tyler, you're serious about this?" I said, leaning back. "You really think I should hand him a lifeline, after all these years of watching you hand him everything while I was told to figure it out on my own?" Dad's face hardened. "That's not fair, isn't it?" I said, my voice rising. "When his car got totaled, he got a new one in a week. When mine died, I got a lecture. When he dropped out of college, you supported his creative path. When I got promoted, silence." Mom looked down at her lap and for once, didn't speak. I stood. "You don't get to decide now that I'm useful. I should share everything I worked for. You made it clear I was on my own. I just took you at your word." Dad opened his mouth to say something, but I was already heading for the door. "Tyler, wait," Mom called after me, but I didn't stop. I got in my car, sat there for a minute, breathing, letting the heat roll over me. Then my phone buzzed. Another text from Zach. "Dad said you were being dramatic. Just help out, man. It's not a big deal." I stared at it. Then I typed one word and hit send. No. That should have been the end of it. But Zach didn't like being told no. Not when he was used to the whole world bending around him. And what he did next? Well, that's when things really got ugly. A few days passed in silence, and I figured that maybe, they'd gotten the message. That maybe I could finally have some space, some peace, some boundary. But no, Zach wasn't wired like that. And neither, apparently, were my parents. It started small. Little things. Mutual friends texting me, asking why Zach was so upset, or why I was being cold. One even said, "He told me you promised to help him launch a startup and then bailed last minute." That's true. I felt the familiar tightness in my chest. The twist of being misrepresented by someone who knows they'll never be held accountable. I didn't reply to most of them, except for one close friend who knew the family dynamic. I told her he's lying. I didn't promise anything. She just said, "Figures, he's been talking about how you're suddenly rich." Jealousy, I guess. It didn't stop there. That weekend, I got a call from my bank. Someone had tried to use my name to open a joint business account. The branch manager flagged it because the second applicant's information didn't match anything in my records. Guess who the second name was? Zach. He'd tried to start a business under my name, without telling me, probably assuming I'd go along with it once it was done, like I always used to. I was stunned. Furious. Embarrassed. I had to go in person to fix it, verify identity documents, change a few things. They couldn't charge him. He hadn't completed the process, but the intent was there. He was trying to leverage my name, my work, for a shortcut. Again. That night, I confronted him. I texted him first. Meet me outside the house. Not inside. I want this private. He replied with a thumbs up emoji. We met on the curb just after sunset. I parked across the street and stayed standing, arms crossed. He sauntered out wearing flip-flops and a smug grin, like this was just a minor misunderstanding. What's up? He asked, acting innocent. You really tried to open a business under my name? I said, voice low. He blinked. What? Dude? No. Just thought we could get things started and figure out the details later. You're overreacting. I stared at him. That's fraud, Zach. Oh, come on. It's not like I was going to steal from you, or anything. He laughed, brushing it off like it was nothing. I just thought you'd be cool with it. You never asked, I said. You assumed. Because that's what you've always done. You assumed the world's gonna hand you a ladder, even when you're standing on someone else's back. The smile slipped from his face. You think just 'cause you made some money, you're better than everyone now? He snapped. No, I said dead calm. I think I worked hard, and you didn't. That's the difference. He scoffed. You know what Mom and Dad said? They said you've changed. That the money's gone to your head. I clenched my jaw. No, Zach. What's changed is that I stopped letting you all walk over me. He was quiet for a beat, then said something that made me take a step back, not in fear, but in shock. Fine, he said bitterly. You want to play the lone wolf now? Don't come crying when things crash down. You think people like you keep success forever? Wait till that startup fails, and you're back to eating ramen. That moment. I don't know. Something in me hardened. Not anger. Not sadness. Just confirmation. That this wasn't about misunderstanding or sibling rivalry. This was entitlement. Pure and simple. I didn't answer him. I just turned around and got back in my car. 2 days later, I got another call. This time from my dad. I let it go to voicemail. I wasn't ready to hear the lecture or the guilt trip. But when I finally played the message later that night, my heart sank. His voice was clipped. Angry. Not disappointed. Furious. Tyler, we need to talk. Your mother's upset. Your brother said you threatened him, and we're not going to let you destroy this family with your ego. Call me back. Tonight. I stared at my phone. Stunned. Threatened him? I hadn't even raised my voice. It hit me like a freight train. Zach was doing what he always did. Playing the victim. Turning the story upside down. But this time, he was trying to weaponize it. And my parents, they believed him. Or at least, wanted to. Because believing me would mean admitting they'd been wrong about him all along. That was the night I realized I had to make a choice. I could either keep defending myself to people who didn't want to hear it, or I could do what I should have done a long time ago. Walk away completely. But before I made that final decision, I had one last move to make. Something that would make them all stop and really see me for the first time. Not the kid in the background. Not the ATM. Not the backup plan. I didn't sleep much that night. My mind raced. But not with anger. Strategy. Because for once, I wasn't reacting. I wasn't playing defense. I was taking control of the story. And if they were going to paint me as selfish, arrogant, or cruel, then I might as well give them a reason to remember it. Not out of pettiness. Out of closure. First, I typed out a short message to my parents. I heard Dad's voicemail. I didn't threaten Zach. I told him no. For once, if you want to believe his version of events, that's your choice. But I won't keep defending myself to people who never asked for my side to begin with. I'm done. No sign-off. No emotion. Just the truth. Flat and final. I didn't expect a reply, and I didn't get one. But what came next? That was my choice. You see, I wasn't just doing well. The startup I joined months ago had recently secured a second round of funding. Big funding. We were partnering with a major financial institution, and my role had shifted from contractor to executive. I was leading a product team. I had equity. I had access. I wasn't interested in flashy revenge. I didn't want to post screenshots online or air out dirty laundry. That wasn't my style. But I did want to send a message. One that couldn't be ignored, twisted, or laughed off. So I did two things. First, I donated a sizable chunk of my signing bonus, $50,000, to a scholarship fund at the university I graduated from. I asked that it be named in memory of my grandfather, my dad's father, the only person in our family who'd ever believed in me without conditions. The press release mentioned me by name, Tyler Reeve, lead product strategist at company name, and ran in a few business journals, even made the local paper. I knew Mom would see it. She subscribed to the Sunday edition. I imagined her sitting at the kitchen table, coffee in hand, flipping to the article, blinking at my photo, wondering why I hadn't told her. Then I made a call to the dealership. I'd been eyeing a second car, not for me, for someone else. See, there was one person in my family who always treated me like I mattered. My Aunt Janice, my dad's younger sister. She'd never married, lived modestly, and worked as a high school teacher for over 30 years. Every holiday, she gave me books instead of gift cards. When I got my first internship, she sent me a handwritten card telling me how proud she was. She never made a big fuss, but she always made me feel seen. She drove a battered old Corolla with nearly 200,000 miles on it, so I bought her a new hybrid, same model, but upgraded, clean, safe. When I showed up at her apartment and handed her the keys, she just stared at me in shock. "I don't need a car like this, Tyler," she whispered. "You deserve one," I said. "No strings attached." She teared up, hugged me tighter than anyone had in years. She didn't post about it online, didn't brag to the family. She just drove it home and sent me a thank you note in the mail. Old school. Beautiful cursive. It's still on my fridge. That was the closure I needed, not the SUV, not the stock options. But life has a way of circling back. A month later, I got a call from my cousin Lindsay, Aunt Janice's daughter. She told me the news. My parents had been invited to a local charity gala hosted by the university. They didn't know I was being honored that night. Lindsay did. She was there too. She said when my name was called and the presenter mentioned the scholarship I'd funded, my mom gasped audibly. My dad just froze. "They looked like someone had punched them in the chest," Lindsay said with a low laugh. "It was kind of beautiful." I didn't go to the event myself. I had a prior commitment, but the photo of the plaque? It spread around family circles fast. And the kicker? The article listed Aunt Janice as the recipient of a vehicle donation in the same paragraph. Some sharp-eyed relatives made the connection. That's when the real fallout started. My inbox began to fill. Messages from cousins I hadn't heard from in years. An email from my uncle saying he'd always admired my work ethic. Even a voicemail from Grandma. Short, uncertain, but heartfelt. "I'm proud of you, sweetheart. I just wanted you to know that." But my parents? Radio silence. Until one day, a large envelope arrived in the mail. No return address, just my name. Inside was a handwritten letter. From Dad. The handwriting was tight and a little shaky. I unfolded it, heart thudding. Not sure if I was ready for whatever guilt trip or lecture he'd decided to send my way, but it wasn't that. It started with, "I suppose it's easier to write things I could never say out loud." What followed was 3 pages of something I never thought I'd see. Accountability. He admitted to the double standards, to always giving Zach more, and expecting me to just deal with it. He wrote about how he thought he was teaching me strength, independence, but now he saw he was just withholding the kind of love and support every kid deserves. He wrote that he saw the photo in paper, that he had no idea what I'd been building, that seeing the name Reeve in that headline had made him realize how little he knew about the man I'd become. And then he wrote something that stopped me cold. "You don't owe us anything, least of all forgiveness. But I want you to know I was wrong. About you, about everything." He didn't beg. He didn't ask for money. He just confessed. I sat on the floor and read it twice, 3 times, and I cried. Not because I wanted revenge, not because I was proud, because for the first time in my life, I felt seen by the man who'd spent years looking right through me. In the weeks that followed, I didn't rush to call. I needed time. Still do. But I kept the letter. And I wrote one back, shorter, simple. I told him I appreciated the honesty, that I wasn't sure what the future would look like. But that I was open to starting a new chapter, one where things weren't about handouts or hierarchy, but respect. Zach, though, he didn't change. Last I heard, he tried launching a podcast with 2 of his friends. It fizzled out after a month. Then he posted a photo of a sports car on Instagram with the caption manifesting this. I smiled when I saw it, because I didn't need to clap back. Didn't need to explain. I'd already done what he never could, figured it out, on my own.